Hi everyone, it's Rachel from Sugar Maple Farmhouse, and today I want to show you how I made these DIY faux vintage French pots. So I've been wanting to make pots like this for a really long time, and I'm glad I finally got my act together enough this year to do it. I have them right now on our covered front porch, so I can tell you that they do hold up outside underneath cover, but they'd also look beautiful inside too. Let's get started and I'll show you exactly how I made them. I started out with plain terracotta pots from the hardware store, and then I used chalk paint to kind of sloppily paint on the outside. I didn't want full coverage here, so I took a chip brush and I just kind of went over the space. In some places I liked a heavier coating, and in other places I felt like the lighter coating worked better. Make sure that you get the rim and that you don't forget that, or underneath the little lip of the rim right there. Additionally, make sure you get the inside of the rim. I didn't do the inside of the pot because there's going to be dirt in here and you're not going to see it. Plus, I added herbs to mine and I did not want any paint kind of where the dirt was touching. So I just lightly did the inside of the rim. Again, a little sloppily, just like the rest of the pot. Now, these only take a few minutes to dry. So while the first one was drying, I just went ahead and did a few more pots. Once the white was dry, I dabbed on a chalk paint in a green color that I really love that I will leave for you in the description below. And I wiped it off. I just put this on, again, a little sloppily. I just dabbed it on in different places with the brush, and then I sponged it off, dabbed it off, wiped it off, just so I could get some kind of age effect going on. I really wanted these pots to have an old, vintage, and aged kind of look. So the best way to do that is creating layers with paint. And I decided to use this green because I thought it looked kind of like an algae or a mold that might form on the pots over time. And it was really a delicate, beautiful color that worked really well with the white. You might notice on the inside of this pot I did miss the rim, but don't worry, I saw that and I went back and got it a little later. So because I wanted these to be kind of vintage French pots, I wanted to include some French words or French sayings on it, things that you might find in a vintage French flower shop. I was able to find these stencils that are sticky on Amazon, and I will leave a link to them in the description for you guys below, and they worked wonderfully. Not only that, but they are reusable. So I kept mine, and I'm going to make more of these pots just because they were so simple and they turn out so beautiful that I think they'd also work well for gifts. A trick for when you're stenciling is to really not put a ton of paint on the brush and dab it really lightly until you get the coverage you're looking for. Here's another one that I tried to do at a better angle for you guys so you could see the stencil and how I kind of dabbed the paint into it. So that was kind of the base layer on all of this. Then I decided I wanted to create a texture on the pots so that they could really look like they kind of had some grime on them from over the years. So I got an interior exterior spackle that I went and kind of just slapped onto the pots all around the edges, all around the rim, and really tried to kind of give it some character by adding this texture. I even added the spackle to the space where I put the label because I really wanted it to look uniform with the rest of the pot. And again, I wanted the label to look old, not like I had just painted it today. And adding kind of the spackle there to give it some texture and even cover up some of the letters at certain points was really kind of a game changer. It really just made the finished pot look all that much more vintage. Make sure when you're adding the spackle to the pots, you're not going in the same direction the entire time. So you can see that I kind of went down a bunch and then I went sideways and then I kind of went through and scraped some spots. Make sure that you're going in all different directions because you really want it to look textured and not like you're just kind of adding another layer to the outside of the pot. You really want it to stand out, and going in different directions is what's going to help it kind of stand out as a nice texture. Once the spackle is dry, it'll turn white. You can see it's done that here, and I'm taking my white chalk paint and going back over the spackle a little bit so that the pot is more of a creamy color versus the bright white that the spackle dries. Waiting for the spackle to dry is really the part that takes the longest out of this entire craft. Everything else only takes a few minutes per pot, but drying the spackle can take anywhere from an hour to even overnight, depending on how thickly you put it on. And I did have a large pot that I did that it did take overnight for the spackle to fully dry. And as you can see, I finally went in and I touched up that paint on the inside of the rim of this pot. Around the stencil, I used my finger to go ahead and cover up the spackle that I put over it to, again, just make it the same creamy color as the rest of the pot, but also to add that age in there so that the stencil wasn't perfect. Now it can be a little bit scary doing this because I didn't want to ruin it, but it ended up looking wonderful on every single pot that I went in and added a little spackle over the stencil and then went back in and painted over. Now it looks a little so-so, but at the end I promise it'll look good. So once that layer of white paint was dry, I went in and I added a little bit of the green again. Again, making these pots look good is really about layering and the textures. So adding in the green really just gave this another element of age. And because it was underneath the label and on the top of the pot too, it just really tied everything together nicely. Once I brushed it on, I again just went and I dabbed or I brushed it off so that it wasn't too bright and too specific. I really wanted it to look random and really just gentle. Here's that other pot that I've been working on too, and I put the green paint on heavier on this pot, which I ended up really loving. I love that all the pots are different. You will never get one single pot that is the same, even if you put the marks in the same spot. They will all turn out different, and I really think that's the beauty of this project, that they're going to be something that you have that is one of a kind. Again, not sparing that label, adding in some of the green there because I want to make that look vintage as well. As a final step for this project, I added on a chalk paint, semi-transparent aged glaze. So again, I just added this on like the green paint. I used a paper towel this time and really just kind of made it random. But again, I did add in some over that label and over that stencil space so that it would look really uniform with the rest of the pot. You can also see adding in the glaze really helps the texture of the spackle to stand out. Here is that second pot again, and here again I did the glaze a little bit heavier. I just wanted this pot to feel like it had seen a little bit more of the world, so it is a little heavier on this one. I also decided to go in on this pot and alternate between the green paint and the aged glaze, which gave it a really nice finish. If you do feel like you got too much of one color on a certain spot, you can go in, wipe it off as best as you can, and then take your white paint and just go back over that spot. It's not gonna make it look bad. Again, the layering on this project is part of the fun. So if you have to go back in and kind of redo a layer, it's just gonna actually make it look better. So if you decide that you like this project, but you don't want to do the stencil, maybe it's just not your thing, you can also do this project without doing the stencil and cut out a couple of the steps. In this case, you'll start with just a terracotta pot, and then I went and put the spackle on really heavily so that it would have a lot of texture. I made several pots like this and several with the stencil so that I could have a nice collection. Again, make sure you're going in different directions with the spackle and then put less on in some spots, put more on in some other spots so that it's really random and really gives you a beautiful texture. When the spackle on the plain pots dries, or the pots without the stencil, you can go ahead and repeat the steps that we did earlier. So again, take that creamy white chalk paint and go over the spackle just to reduce the bright white of the spackle and make the pots look uniform. Once that creamy white paint dries, go ahead and go in again with the green paint and then with the semi-transparent aged glaze to give the pot a finished look. I also went in and gave the same treatment to the terracotta dishes that go under the pots. I did do these only for a few of them, and as it turns out, I like them better with the dish underneath the pot versus not having the dish. It holds water, obviously, so it's better for the plants in the long run. The ones that don't have it under, the plants have started to die. So I am gonna go in and finish little dishes for each of the pots that I ended up making. And here is the final product. I'm just in love with how these little DIY vintage French pots turned out. Thank you guys so much for following along today. I hope that you love these DIY faux vintage French pots. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. And there is a full tutorial up at sugarmaplefarmhouse.com on the pots. Also, please remember to subscribe to our channel so you can follow along with everything we're doing here at the farmhouse. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.